Hey, it's Charlie with Merrill Performance. I have a client that I saw today who's from Mexico. He lives in Baja, Tijuana. His name's Fernando, and he's generous enough to share our Zoom call that I did with him today, where we're talking about a potential labral tear in his shoulder, what he thinks is a labral tear in his shoulder that might be causing some shoulder pain. I started messaging with him back in July, early on in his process, where he just had some mild shoulder pain. What you won't see in this video is sort of the whole story of how we got to this point, but what you will see is our ultimate meeting and some of the solutions that I shared with him that I just thought would be helpful in some of the psychoeducation and some of the things that he and I talked about. So he originally reached out to me because he was diagnosed with scapular dyskinesis, which is just a scary way to say that your shoulder blade isn't moving as well on one side as it is on the other side. And he had been to a sports clinic, and they were trying to treat it with electrical stimulation and laser, which really wasn't getting him very far. And so he was a little frustrated. He started to explore other options, saw another therapist, started doing things like the sleeper stretch and some other sort of relatively standard things. But that wasn't getting him very far either. So like a lot of people in this situation, like a lot of athletes, and Fernando, you should check him out on Instagram. It's, well, I'll put it on text at the bottom. It's a little hard to spell for you, but he's quite an athlete, super strong guy. Maybe it's important to say that Fernando is a gym-based athlete. He's an obstacle course racer. He's a runner. He's a multi-sport athlete. Super strong, sort of well-rounded type of athlete. And it's a great example of someone who, over the course of time, will have fear that starts to grow because they're going through the medical system. And as a result, they get an MRI and they talk to doctors, they talk to PTs, and they start to develop this list of things that show up. They sort of start, it's almost like they're putting it in a backpack and they're carrying it around. It gets super heavy, it's more fear, and it starts to affect their function. So he had this story, this narrative of like gradual increase in shoulder pain, started not a big deal, and built until now he has this label of a labral tear. And so he and I will talk about that in the video, but suffice it to say, over the course of time, I was really working with him to understand that it's possible that his pain is not being driven by a labral tear. And you'll hear when I talk to him about this, that we're talking about symptom behavior, we're talking about life stress. In this case, COVID's a big factor, being at home, his kids are young, his pattern of exercise has significantly changed. One of the things I want to share is in his stories after our conversation, he posted in Spanish, which I don't speak Spanish, so my daughters would have to translate. But he told me that he talked about how fear, stress, and emotions are greatly involved in our injuries and our pain. And we almost never look into that when those things happen. And he understands, he can see now how athletes, especially, can relate to this. We'd be very interested in this idea as an alternative explanation for why they might be in pain. All of these social life changes are important variables, and the psychological changes that have happened are also important variables. So I planted that seed really early, and we'll talk about that in the video you're about to see. But anyway, his wife also happens to be a psychologist, which is really helpful. So she's been reinforcing for him these ideas that pain is not always connected to soft tissue damage. And again, you'll see that in the video. Let's see what else I can tell you just to lead up to this. He'd been doing some good scapular control exercises, some of the stuff on my YouTube channel, and that was a little helpful, but he just wasn't getting to where he needed to get. So anyway, you'll get a sense from our conversation how I conceptualize these problems, and you'll start to hear some of the pain science that shows up in our conversation, and things like fear reduction strategies and how we can use science and symptom behavior to reduce fear and to help people sort of head down a new road with a new narrative. And luckily his wife is, again, reinforcing these things for him. And the people around us can either reinforce fear or they can reinforce safety. And she, luckily, is someone that's really reinforcing safety for him. He wants to avoid surgery, needless to say. That's his goal, even though the surgeon, the doctor, feels convinced in the sort of old biomedical model that because we see a labral tear, of course we're going to do surgery at this point. And I don't think that's the right assumption, but you'll see why. So Hey, Fernando. Hey, Fernando. How's it going?
How are you?
Good, man. Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you finally.
Meet you as well. I love connecting with people from different parts of the country and world and all that. You're in Baja, California?
Yes, sir. Right across the border from San Diego.
Right on. Do you surf there?
No, I actually moved to Tijuana. This is where I live. I moved here a couple of years ago.
Okay.
I used to live closer to Mexico City down the south,
Okay.
but now I'm living here. I haven't learned how to surf. I do have a stand-up
Yep.
paddleboard, but not
Cool.
surfing. Yeah.
Yeah. What a big change, huh? From big city, from Mexico City to being more, small town, right?
Well, actually, I was born in Mexico City, but I got married and moved out from the city like 15 years ago. And we moved with my family. We moved to a very small town, very small town, like an hour drive from Mexico City.
Okay.
And we lived there for 10 years. And now we moved to Tijuana. So I'm used to little towns.
I
Now
see.
Tijuana is it's like a big city, not as Mexico City, but it's
Yeah.
bigger.
I would love to see both those places. I've been to neither of them. I've heard Mexico City's amazing, though. I'd love to come one of these
Oh
days.
yeah,
Yeah.
it is.
Yeah. Um, cool. Well, I read back through our Instagram like text string just because I wanted to refresh my memory about your case. And
Yeah.
really early on, I was talking with you about this idea that pain is a brain phenomenon, and so we can't always count on pain to predict tissue damage, right? We know from the science that pain and tissue damage don't correlate very well. And in the meantime, you've had an MRI scan, it sounds like, and they found a labral tear, and your
Yeah.
symptoms have gotten progressively worse since we talked. Is that right?
Yes.
Can you kind of update me on like what did that worsening look like? Like, did they start worsening after you had the MRI, or were they already kind of worsening up until that point?
Well, it all started with the shoulder issue that I looked. I kind of looked at myself doing a pull up and a video,
Mm-hmm.
and I kind of shrugged to one side.
Yeah.
So I started going to the physiotherapist, and he told me, "Yeah, you have scapular dyskinesis. I'm going to treat you for that." And he started doing some laser and some ultrasounds, as I told you in the first time I wrote. But it didn't get better. I started doing mobility stuff on my own and started to taking care of it on my own, and it worked better for me than going to physiotherapy and laser and ultrasound. Uh, but well, as an athlete, we start to feel better and we start just banging on it, right? So it got worse and worse. Then I started feeling a pinch in my shoulder, pinching, and all the way to the up to the neck,
Mm-hmm.
and my scapula and the middle of my back. So I was like, okay, this is not right. And I went to a couple of different doctors, acupuncture, uh, another physiotherapist, like different specialists.
Yeah.
One of them wanted to give me a shot of ozone
Hmm. Yeah.
in
I've heard
the
that.
in the biceps tendon because I have the long head of the bicep is
Oh,
inflamed.
tendonitis or whatever. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and I was like, you know what? I don't want to do those alternative things that maybe they'll work, maybe not.
Mm-hmm.
And I got an MRI on my own. I went to have an MRI, and it showed up the slap tear.
Okay. And then
And
it was like a. Did you say it was anterior, posterior? Did they tell you what part of the clock? They usually describe it as in terms of the circle of a clock. Which part of the
yeah,
leg?
it's on the top and posterior part,
Okay.
right where the biceps tendon attaches to the labrum.
Okay.
And well, I've read a lot about it, and I read that for older athletes, I mean older 35 plus, a lot of them just can get better, just strengthening and trying to uh, to get better at mobility. So I was like, okay, I don't want to get surgery.
Mm-hmm.
I'll try to recover from that, like strengthening and mobility. So I went to some sessions, some PT sessions, but
Mm-hmm.
it didn't work. It was painful. It was painful all the way up to the neck, and sometimes in the back, sometimes in the front.
So it still is. It's kind of moving around. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Some days it's worse in the front. Some days it's in the back and my neck, and my traps.
Okay.
So the last doctor I went to, he was like, you know what? You tried everything. The best thing we could do is just surgery. Reattach your biceps tendon to the bone.
No problem. So easy, right? Let's just
Oh
do that.
yeah, that sounds easy.
Yeah. Yeah. Let's just take a few hours. Don't worry about it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Got it.
And well, he told me, you know what? Try a couple more weeks doing a sleeper stretch, which I've been feeling better with that.
Good.
But I'm also doing dead hangs, trying to accumulate 5 minutes a day of just dead hanging,
Mm-hmm.
and that's improving. That's
Good.
getting everything.
It doesn't hurt. It doesn't
Better.
hurt up. Yeah. Okay. Do you get a lot of feelings of instability or catching or locking in your shoulder joint when you're doing things? Does it catch on you or make noise?
It makes noise. Sometimes it just clicks in some points, but the other one does as well
Does
with
the
no
same
pain.
thing? Okay.
So doctor told me you maybe have a slap here in the other side, but it's not as bad as this one, right?
So this is the challenge with going to see someone in the biomedical system is we know from the research now that just like pain doesn't correlate with tissue damage, more specifically, we see in these studies around MRI scans of labral tears that a high percentage of people with no pain have labral tears. So you put 1,000 pain-free athletes like you and I in an MRI machine, and a high percentage of them will have labral tears and didn't even know they had them because there's no pain. Has nothing to do with the severity, has nothing to do with the location of the labral tear. And in fact, when you have someone like you who has identified a labral tear on the left in the painful shoulder, and you MRI scan their other shoulder, they usually have the exact same labral tear in the pain-free side.
Yeah.
And the prevalence of that is like 70%. So with a lot of these MRI findings, we're starting to normalize them, and we're starting, rather than pathologize them, and we're starting to understand that they're just a normal part of being an athlete. And I mean, they're just a normal part of being a human being, honestly. So this is why when you read on the internet, which is great, and they say, hey, labral tears aren't the end of the world, you can do this and that and the other thing and move through it. It's because it's true. It's because you might have had that labral tear for 10 years.
Yeah.
And never knew it until recently. So I encourage you when we messaged the first time to think about the timing of the onset when you first started to notice that left shoulder pain. Was there anything stressful? Was there anything life-wise that felt particularly challenging, psychologically or socially challenging, besides COVID?
Yeah, I think besides that's the main thing, right? That's the main factor right now
That
for
doesn't
all the
count.
changes.
No,
It doesn't count. Yeah, well, that is one important part of it because life changed. Now I've been having my kids for 8 months at home, no schools, so that's challenging.
Yeah.
I mean, I have a 1-year-old. He's 8 years old. The other one is 4. So
Okay.
at that age, it's very hard to deal with them at home.
Yeah, for sure.
So of course it's not the same. That of course it's increasing stress at home.
Yeah.
I had to change my training habits, which I've been very conscious about because in these months I was working more on my anterior chain, like pushing a lot, push-ups, shoulder exercises, and not a lot of pull-ups because I didn't have a pull-up bar or somewhere to hang from.
Uh-huh.
So maybe that contributed to more tightening in the front.
Sure, it's possible.
And the stress in my with the neck and the traps. I don't know. I read a lot about upper crossbody syndrome as well, which sounded like it could
Those
be something.
those people, I think that phenomenon exists, but those people are going in this direction, and I'm going in this direction because
Okay.
the way they talk about things is very fear-based. It makes it
Hmm.
very complex, and it takes the control away from you as an athlete to get well on your own. So I'm not a big fan of that whole idea, even though I think that phenomenon exists. I don't think it's what causes pain. I think potentially it's the result of an athlete being in pain for a while. They get things that change and it's opposite sides, and but micromanaging that phenomenon is not what gets people well, in my opinion.
Okay.
So don't go too far down that rabbit hole, I guess.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. So sometimes there's a stressful life event that happens at the onset of symptoms. Other times it's just the fear that we develop from hearing things like scapular dyskinesis, hearing things like we're going to make it better and then it doesn't get better, the frustration around that, the disappointment at paying all this money and putting all this time and energy into things that aren't getting you where you need to go. And that frustration, that fear builds over time, right? Until then you have an MRI and then there's a labral tear. And it's like fear, 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 fear. And based on what I've already shared with you, you get the sense that this is not a clear-cut case of a labral tear, probably. But also the way the symptoms are behaving in your left shoulder, to me, doesn't point towards a labral tear. It's not unstable. It's not clicking any different from the other side, locking and catching, which is what we see when there's a tear or roughness around the ball and socket joint. And it also hurts in multiple areas and moves around into multiple different areas. As well as, I think what you described is the pain's not there all the time. The symptoms are inconsistent. They come and go, and sometimes they're worse and sometimes they're better. Am I right?
Yep.
So in the face of all that symptom behavior, there's nothing to me that points to your labral tear being a problem. I'll just say it that confidently.
Yep.
Because when we do have a labral tear that's pathologic that needs surgery, the symptoms behave very consistently. They're very reproducible. They're often in the same spot. They don't move around, infect other areas. And so I feel confident that if we can get the right assortment of things for you to be doing, and we get the right conceptualization, and we can do things that bring down fear for you, that you're going to be just fine.
Okay. Yeah, I completely understand. I completely get that.
Yeah.
Because I mean,
Fear
pain
is a killer, man. It's like
oh yeah,
the killer for athletes because it threatens everything we love.
yeah. I've been like, of course, fear is there and stress every time I get off bed and I'm like, oh, I still can't train. It's been months now without training as I want to. And that's the way for me to relieve stress, right? Training.
Absolutely. That's what I mean. Killer.
So it builds up.
You got it. You got it. So we navigate this two ways. One is through the body and giving you the right mix of things that are going to really help to normalize your body and give new input to your brain and your nervous system that you're safe, that you're okay. And the other one is more the psychological road, which is really, really noticing when fear and things that reinforce danger come up for you, whether it's Google searching or talking to the doctor or what your friend says or what the PT says, starting to track how much not only fear from outside, but fear that you're generating with your own self-talk, noticing how much that's there and trying to shift away from that to more positive self-talk. And you and I just met, so you're kind of taking my word for it, right? That I'm sharing all these resources with you. And I have stories that I could share too. But remembering that some of these things that I shared about how pain works and about labral tears and about the science around this, hopefully really is just reassuring and helps you move through some of that self-talk and that fear.
Yeah. No, I completely understand. And that's why I wanted to talk to you and contacted you in the first place, because my wife is a
Psychologist.
psychologist.
Yeah.
And she told me, you know what, pain, it's just a symptom of something else growing in you. Like it shows up as pain here, pain there.
She knows.
Oh yeah.
It's great. It's amazing. I mean, really, pain is just an opinion by your brain, which is really just a prediction machine. It's your brain's opinion of how much danger you're in. That's all it is.
Yeah.
So knowing that hopefully is reassuring. Maybe it's annoying too. I don't know.
Oh no. I hear that all the time, but I'm used to that.
Yeah. But I mean, the shift in belief system for any athlete from body oriented, which is how we all grew up. It's what we believe. It's ingrained in our culture. It's ingrained in the biomedical system. Shifting your belief from the body to more of this hybrid of body and mind, I think is really is an important part of the process. Because as long as you're stuck in the old school model of the body being a problem and fear around the labral tear, even if we're doing all the right things, it won't get you as far. Because at the end of the day, it's your brain that's trying to predict how safe you are.
Yeah.
So I can share some resources, outside of what we talk about today, going down that more psychology road, pain science road. But in the meantime, maybe it's helpful just to share some things that might be helpful to you that are like gym oriented, body oriented.
Yeah, so I can just improve. Yeah, of course.
So
because I mean,
you go ahead.
Oh, sorry.
No, you go ahead.
The thing with this is, as you said, and as I told you, the pain is sometimes moving from one place to another. There is just one constant, which is in the front of my shoulder, that when I try to like some movements, some specific moves, it hurts. It's not catching, but it kind of pinches some movements, and I'm limited in some of the range of motion. So
like which ones?
Work on that.
Which range of motion?
Like the reaching behind my back.
Okay.
That's one of them. It creates pain in the front.
Uh-huh.
But I mean, I can raise my arms. Sometimes I can feel tension here in my chest.
I think what you shared about the balance of pushing and pulling, a lot of people, to make a rule around it, they'll say you should do 2 pulling exercises for every 1 pushing exercise as a balance. Yeah. I think 1-to-1 is fine, but honestly, I think more important than pulling, like doing a strict row or a lat pull, is getting overhead and doing things that reinforce these scapular muscles in your back, doing things that reinforce the muscles between your shoulder blades in an overhead position seems to be more important than pulling down at your side, right? Which of my YouTube videos have you seen that you've tried that sort of felt helpful to you so far?
Well, right at the beginning, I saw the video of the band and just going up and down.
Yeah.
For scapular.
Serratus anterior. Do you still do that one? And was it helpful? Yeah,
I still do that. I use a foam roller in the wall and then the rubber band to keep it.
Okay, cool.
I do it with one arm on the side and then the front.
Got it.
What else? Which one? The
sounds like the sleeper stretch you're doing.
I've been doing the sleeper stretch for the last week.
Okay. The first rib band.
The first rib band. Yeah, that one.
And stretching the neck.
I feel a lot of relief on my neck with that one.
Okay, good. That's fantastic.
Yeah.
What else? Anything else?
Well, those are the videos I saw. I saw another one with you with an athlete doing pull-ups with the dyskinesis. I'm working on him.
Okay. Have you tried any of that with your hanging? Because you said at first when you go to pull, one side would kind of unlock. Are you able now to set and stay engaged as you're pulling?
I haven't been doing pull-ups all the way, but right now that I'm dead hanging, I dead hang, and then the next set, I just do some shrugs up and down.
Scapular pull-ups,
then rest.
Okay.
Then again.
Okay. Well, that would be a goal if you're looking at functional goals. Scapular engagement and your ability to maintain that as you go through your full range of motion is really important. So some athletes will engage and then they go to pull and they immediately unlock. Other athletes will engage and they'll start their pull, and as they get to the top, they'll start to unlock instead of there. So you can videotape yourself and get a sense for how close you are to that functional goal. I spend a lot of time in these situations helping people work on their scapular awareness in many different planes. So for instance, pull-ups is one way that we do it. Maybe I should just show you and see if I can move my setup here a little bit. I'm plugged into my Ethernet. So I work with a lot of rock climbers here in Boulder. And ring rows is another, you have a TRX shirt on, so you can use your TRX straps for this too. But ring rows are another movement that I really like because they'll get you the control of your scapula in this plane as well. So scapular rows, you see that?
Yes.
To get awareness around how the scapula moves there. And then adding in a pull, right? Relax, engage shoulder blades, pull, and I'm ending here, not here.
Yeah.
Right? And that awareness is super important for people. The scapular push-up is the same thing, right? Which I'm sure you've done.
Yeah.
Building awareness around the shoulder blade position at the top of your push-up. And a lot of athletes will do push-ups and they'll shorten. They'll do this, but they'll never finish the movement, right? So your ability to
the protraction,
finish every movement with full protraction is really important. Even if it's just in your warm-up and when the workout starts, you want to kind of crush it and work through it fast. At least during the warm-up, make sure that you're really engaging that well. So those are the three main positions that I like to use for people. The other thing that I spend a lot of time teaching with a barbell when people are overhead is their ability to know where their shoulders are in space, whether they're in a jerk grip or whether they're in a snatch grip position. Are they in the habit of being here, or are they in the habit of being here? And the cue we always hear in the CrossFit gym, have you done CrossFit before? Is that one of your main things?
It's not one of my main, but I do a lot of snatching and
you do some barbell work. Yeah. So snatching and jerking are the most advanced versions of this. Overhead squatting is another good time to practice.
Oh,
that.
yeah.
But the idea here is that the cue we often hear from the coaches. Can you still see me okay?
Yeah.
The cue that we often hear from the coaches is, hey, break the bar. Break the bar. That's a good way to cue. Make sure your armpits are facing forward. Make sure your elbow pits are facing your head, different from being there, right?
Yeah.
Where everything's kind of internally rotated, shrugged, which is how a lot of people get overhead. And it causes a lot of imbalance, right? The challenge is when your hand's on the barbell, it tends to reinforce this because everything goes together, right? So when I cue you into the right position of screwing your shoulder into external rotation and getting your shoulder blade to settle back into this position, take up all the slack, look where my hand is, right? My thumb's back. I can't grab the barbell unless I pronate my hand. And generally when I pronate my hand to grab that barbell, everything goes with it. That makes sense?
Yeah.
So your ability to disassociate or disconnect your shoulder blade and your shoulder from your hand and your forearm is really hard to feel until you start to practice it, especially under load and especially at high speed when you're catching a snatch, for instance, right? So that skill, I can't underemphasize or overemphasize how important that skill is to be able to practice finding that position, locking in to that nice stable scapular position, and then being able to maintain that as you squat to the bottom of your squat. Now, one other cue you'll hear a lot in the CrossFit gym, which I don't love, is pressing up on the bar. Because a lot of athletes will push up on the bar before they lock into that healthy position. And so then they're shrugged, and then they're overhead squatting like this, which takes a lot of work and puts a lot of strain on the tissues, right? So what's cool about that cue, though, is that when I overhead squat, I like the intention of pushing up on the barbell. If you can avoid the shrugging that goes with it. So I'll give you an example. So when I'm not in the right position and I press up on the barbell, my shoulder blades do this, okay? When I find that healthy shoulder screwed into place, breaking the bar, externally rotated position, and then I go to push up on the bar, there's nowhere to go because I've already taken out all the slack from the system in the other direction. So I can still have the intention of pushing up on the bar without actually shrugging my shoulders. And for me, I feel that massively in my low traps, like all day long right there, instead of up in my neck and in my upper traps. So it's one thing for me to describe that. It's another thing for you to be able to feel it, like in your shoulders, the difference between those two extremes. Do you have a barbell handy?
I can find something.
Or a PVC or...
Let me see. I got my TRX here. This is where I hang.
Nice. Solid.
And let me see. Well, I got my bar here, but it's a 40-pound bar.
Okay, that's okay.
Oh no, I got C bars here.
Probably a good start. 40-pound bar is fine. As long as you feel comfortable. Do you feel comfortable with that overhead?
I don't think so right now. Yeah.
Okay, that's fair.
Yeah, but maybe this one.
Yeah. Yeah, so you come up, and the challenge with the cue of focusing on your hands, breaking the bar, is that it takes you away from the focus being on this part of your body. So I want you to focus, cue in on your shoulder blade and your shoulder joint screwing into position. Like I'm taking your arms and I'm screwing them back that way, right? And then once you get there, can you press up on the bar? Your shoulder blades don't really go anywhere, right? Because you've taken up most of the slack. If you screw those shoulders into position maximally, you've taken up 90% of the slack in the system.
Yeah.
Right? Can you feel the difference there?
I can feel my lower traps.
Yeah, good.
Activated.
Good. So your lower traps and your serratus anterior that comes across here actually do the same job. They work together. They're agonists. So this exercise that I showed you before and your low trap activation stuff go together. Cool. Yeah. So I like the warm up of scap pull-ups, scap rows, scap push-ups, and just starting to get into the habit of really knowing where your shoulder blades are in space will reinforce safety to your brain.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, this is where I'm doing the dead hangs and just scapular pull-ups and.
Good. Yeah. And so the goal with all of those is to do the scapular pull-up and then do the whole pull-up with the scapula staying engaged. Once you can do that, you're going to be pretty solid. How much work have you done on your low traps?
Not a lot, actually, because I've been like doing little by little some rowing work to activate the lower traps, rowing with the TRX. But I noticed that since you're engaging and activating your biceps as well, the biceps tendon kind of gets in pain that night.
I see.
Okay. So I've been doing it like gradually.
Okay. Lower traps are a weird muscle because they are not a big muscle. They're not like a strength training muscle. They're more of a control, small muscle that needs to be activated, turned on through intention more than strengthened. And so, people will say, well, I get my low trap by doing rows and I'll pull my shoulder blades like down and together. That's an okay way to start to activate the low trap, but mostly they're using heavier weight. And the reality is we want low trap to be working up in here anyway, when it comes to your shoulder pain. You're probably not too limited down here.
Yeah.
Compared to being up here overhead with a barbell, right?
Yeah, right now I felt it. When I started doing the torquing on my elbows, I immediately felt it.
Feel it right away. And so we want to start to get that low trap firing, working with serratus anterior in those overhead positions with relatively light weight, honestly. You just don't need a lot of resistance to do it. And then it starts working again. And I didn't explain this to you, maybe you already know this, but all of these muscles that we're talking about, all of this coordination control in your shoulder, all that information originates from your brain and has to exit from your neck to get into your shoulders. And so your neck is actually quite important when it comes to shoulder function. So the fact that you're opening up the first rib and you're opening up the scalenes and all of that stuff is really connected to the shoulder, both in terms of pain and in terms of function, right? Muscle power, range of motion. Your brain's calling all the shots, but it has to go through the electrical system to get there.
Yeah.
So low trap, let me give you a few low trap options that you can experiment with, and then you can sort of let me know what you feel like is best after you practice it. So you're already doing this one.
Yep.
This one. Heavy band, but sometimes what I'll recommend people do when they get to the top is find that position that I just cued you to find, right? Shoulder blades squeezed, my thumbs are pointed back. You see that? Thumbs are pointed back. And then once you find that, do a hip hinge and fall into basically a good morning position with your arms still overhead. Okay, and what that's going to do is it's going to tease out this lower V, this lower trap every time you do it. And then back up, and then back down. So we get serratus anterior up, we get and then we get serratus anterior on the way back down. Okay, does that make sense?
Yeah.
Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, it was just my kid.
I heard that. The other way we do this sometimes is through some prone stuff on the ball. So there's everything from eyes, T's when I'm in this position, and then Y's overhead.
Yeah.
You've done those before?
Yeah.
How do they feel to your shoulder?
Sorry?
How do they feel to your shoulder? How do they feel when you're in that position?
It feels like I'm activating my back. It sometimes I can feel I get tension on my upper trap when I do them.
Yes.
So I try to relax, bring my shoulders down and try to do it because I can feel the tension all the way up.
For sure. And this is why the weight needs to be pretty light. And sometimes that prone position on the ball is almost too much resistance because the weight of your arm is just too heavy. And so the cue I give over and over again, whether it's this position or this position, is that the neck has to be relaxed, which is, I know, something you're already thinking about. But when I have someone come to here and I say, relax your neck, most of the time they do this. And I say, okay, that's great, but keep your neck relaxed and bring your arms back up. And they go like this.
Yeah.
Okay, well, now can you relax your neck? Yeah, I can relax my neck. Right. So the shoulder blade and the arm end up going together, kind of like what's happening with the hand on the barbell, right? So your ability to coordinate the difference between your arms staying in this position, your shoulder blades staying in this position is really challenging, right? And even just doing this, even just getting in the habit of feeling, can I keep my arms at 90 degrees and move my shoulder blades into a shrug and then down into a more healthy position? Same here. My thumbs are back. can I get the feeling of what I just described with the barbell, of getting my shoulder blades to shrug and then relax back down to that healthy position where I'm going to be much more likely to get my low trap instead of my upper trap doing all the work. Right? We're trying to keep your upper trap from doing 80% of the work and make it more of a 50-50 balance. And to do that, we need the lower trap to get in the habit of doing sometimes even 80 to 100%. Full relaxation to retrain the brain. Right?
Yeah.
Do you know the crossover symmetry system?
No, I haven't heard. No.
Okay, you can look it up. You can look up crossover symmetry online. I also have some videos on my YouTube channel where I demonstrate the flow of the 7 different exercises that are really geared towards what we're talking about. And they use a system of bands. They're meant to be used crossed, and there are a number of different resistance levels. But again, the resistance doesn't have to be heavy. It could be relatively light.
Crossover symmetry.
Yeah, you can also make your own setup if you just have elastic bands lying around the house. You don't need to buy their bands. More than anything, I want you to know the movements. And you'll notice that the cue with a lot of the movements, if you're pulling on the band and then rotating up against the resistance, the cue is a lot of the same stuff. Like, can you relax the neck and still pull on that resistance and start to get some control over that? Can you pull on the bands and go overhead? The bands are pulling from the screen, and be able to relax your neck, find that healthy position for your shoulder to retrain it, right? So the crossover symmetry system, the 2 movements I think are the most important are pulling, rotating, and pulling up to the victory. There's 7 movements in the activation series that I teach. Those are the 2 that I think for you are most important. And you can do those in the same hip hinge that we were in before, right? You can be here, and you can even just work it against gravity if you're able to relax your shoulders, relax your upper traps so that you can feel it in the back. Same thing here. You can pull here, keep your elbows high, and find that relaxation with your neck so we can drive the work into the mid-back. Yeah.
Yeah, just make consciousness of that, no? Activating the lower.
You got it.
Relaxing.
It's so much more about intention than it is about anything else. Like, you could have all the right movements, but if you don't in your brain have the right intention about where you need to be in space, they don't get you where you need to get, unfortunately.
Yeah. What's your take on, because I can feel sometimes that the disconnection of mind and muscles is so great. Like, for the lower traps, what is your take on having electrostimulation, for example, like a very low frequency electrostimulation on my back? Because I have a Compex and I can use that too.
Yeah, it's fine. It's fine. I think, you would want to pair that with some of these intention activation strategies, because the Compex isn't going to do it for you. But if you're using it as a cue and to get a little more out of the muscle, that's fine. Ultimately, you shouldn't need it. Ultimately, your muscle will just start doing its job and you won't need it. So that addresses a lot of the stability stuff. I don't know, are you lying on a foam roller and just like opening up your shoulders and opening up your pecs?
Yeah. I saw that video you have on the foam roller, from the lower back to the upper part, and then right in the middle, go side to side. And I've noticed that on my painful shoulder, on my painful side, when I roll on this part of my lat, it creates a very pinpoint pain in my chest.
Oh, interesting. Yeah, through your ribs. Yeah, there might be some stiff ribs in there. Do you also roll with it going across your spine this way and kind of rolling back and going up and down?
Yeah, up and down and side to side. I've done it. Yeah.
Okay, I see.
Moving my arms with the roller.
Yeah, the two that I think are, in my mind, for shoulder pain, the most important, just to make sure you're doing all this, is is snow angels. The goal, trying to get your hands to the floor through the whole range. Open up your pecs.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of pushing and pressing, especially to get the front of the shoulder open, right? And I have a video on YouTube where I do some nerve mobility. I don't know if you saw that one or not.
I guess.
Kind of
Yeah, I guess I do.
mobilizing the two nerves that go from your neck to your arm. One is the median nerve, right? This way or this way. With the head. One is the ulnar nerve. Put my fingers like this. And I either mobilize from the wrist or I mobilize from the head. And then the third one is the radial nerve, which is found inside the fist. Punch the ground. And I'm either mobilizing the nerve from the wrist and elbow, or I'm mobilizing it from the neck. And you feel those in different parts of the shoulder. And a lot of people, they'll feel their symptoms in their shoulder blade and their labrum. They'll feel the symptoms just by mobilizing the nerves. And so you notice when I was doing that, I was oscillating on and off tension. I wasn't holding it. I was going on, off.
Yeah.
To desensitize the nerve. And I have a video on that on my YouTube channel you can check out.
Yeah. I mean, I have a shorter roller, foam roller, but it still works.
Yeah, that's fine. You can always use like a yoga mat for the lower half. This is the third one that I forgot to mention is this one. Have you done this one
Yeah.
before?
Yeah.
Yeah, kind of let the head fall to the ground and let the hips fall close to the ground to get that mobility.
Oh yeah.
It's nice.
It
right?
gets to a point around here
Yeah,
where I can feel a pinch in my shoulder.
that's good. That's a sign that if we mobilize that, it's going to ease up. So letting your head fall more to the ground, you're trying to take that normally forward curve and try to reverse it. That's what your goal is with that one. Instead of staying flexed, instead of staying rounded, you're trying to reverse that curve and go the other way. Right?
Yeah.
So I think here's the biggest challenge, Fernando, working from a distance is like, if I were seeing you in the clinic, there might be some trigger points I could release in your lats. There might be, I could decrease sensitivity in your nervous system by using some of those manual therapy techniques. What we find though, is if there's still fear of your body being damaged, it doesn't get us very far. It doesn't matter if it's laser or stim or needles or manipulation. As long as you stay scared of your labral tear, of your shoulder not being okay and potentially needing surgery, it just doesn't get people very far, unfortunately. So I want you to sort of hopefully like stop that momentum in that direction and give this stuff a month and just, see how it goes before you make any decisions about anything.
Yeah. I hear you. Like last week when I saw this doctor, he told me to go up a couple of weeks and do the sleeper stretch and then decide if it improved. I think it's getting better with the stretch and of course the dead hanging and like trying to be conscious of that. And well, trying to be more relaxed.
Less fear. I'm going to be okay. Yeah. By the way, this stretch in the literature has actually been shown to be as effective or more effective than the sleeper stretch.
I read that, and it's less painful.
It's a little less painful. The sleeper stretch is weird to set up. It's really important. I'll just show you real quick. It's really important when you do the sleeper stretch that you start with your arm kind of like reaching toward you to get the shoulder blade away from the spine. And then as you go to roll up, you have to roll just past vertical. So it's tempting to want to roll back because it hurts. You have to almost roll past vertical to wind the tissue up. And then you can bend the elbow and really get access to that tissue. If the arm starts to drift down, or if the body starts to roll back, you're going to lose it all, right?
Yeah.
The setup of that is super important to be able to really wind up that tissue and really keep it there. And now I feel that like massively in the back of my shoulder. That's where you want to be feeling it, not so much in the front. It shouldn't be pinchy. You shouldn't be feeling it up there. Makes sense.
Yeah, yeah, of course. Yeah, yeah. I've been very careful with that one. And when I start doing it, doctor told me when you feel pain, just go a little further, just a little further, and relax. Do it 15 times. But I can feel it like when I start pushing on my hand, I can feel click, like click.
That's okay. It's okay if it clicks a little bit, but I want you to sort of experience that stretch. It feels like a joint stretch. It doesn't feel like a muscle. It feels like different. It feels kind of
Yeah.
hard. The end feels kind of hard and leathery because you're stretching the joint, but you should feel it in the back. If you're feeling anywhere else, start again, reset it up, and see if you can adjust your body position to get it in the right spot, because it's just tricky.
Oh yeah.
Anyway, use a lacrosse ball, use some of those old school strategies to get into your lats and roll on those trigger points. Use your foam roller, get into the back of your shoulder, get some blood flowing in there with a lacrosse ball, roll against the wall with it.
Yeah.
Your pec and roll the lacrosse ball in your pec a little bit against the wall and get some of those trigger points worked out. It's all just like old school, helpful mobility work. And keep doing your first rib correction. I know that's a lot of stuff to work on, but you don't need to be doing it all every day.
Yeah, I try to do like different things every day.
Yeah. And all the movements that you're doing, the more you can scale them. Snatching is a great example. If you could be snatching with a PVC, do that.
Yeah, no weight involved, just the movement.
Pattern the movement, like do the movement well. All those movements are so helpful. Push-ups, like do push-ups at an incline, do push-ups on your knees. Like continue doing these normal movements to normalize that your shoulder's okay, and that those things are actually going to probably be more therapeutic than dangerous if you can find ways to scale them and continue to do them.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah, completely.
Yeah, man. Any other questions?
Well, I guess that's that was very helpful, Charlie. It was great, like having this advice and this like option for me to start recovering, because I don't want to go through surgery. I've been there and I know I can go without it.
Yeah, I'm pretty confident
Hopefully.
you can go without it based on what you described to me. If you have surgery, it's not the end of the world. Your shoulder will be fine. You're a strong guy. You're a healthy guy. Even if you need that, you'll be fine. It's just annoying because it takes some time. But,
oh yeah, yeah.
But I don't think you'll need that. One of the clinical strategies we use that I think is really interesting to also help reinforce the idea that that your body's okay, but your brain is confused, or it's learned pain, is that if you can close your eyes and imagine something triggering. Let's say you close your eyes right now and you visualize doing a snatch with 135 pounds, or you visualize doing a snatch with 95 pounds. If you can sit there and visualize that movement or some other triggering movement that is something your shoulder can't do right now, does it make your pain worse just by thinking about it, visualizing it?
Yeah.
That's one of the few clinical tests I use to help reinforce this idea that if the pain's inconsistent, if it's showing up at times when the stress level's higher, if it's behaving in a way that doesn't really make sense sometimes, moving around different areas, and if it's connected to your emotions like fear, then we're onto something.
Yeah. What would be your advice in helping? Because I know this pain has been moving around and everything, and the only constant is the tendinosis or tendinitis on the biceps.
Yeah.
So what would be a good advice for that?
That's all going to clear up as part of this process. I mean, if there's any tendinosis in there, it's because you haven't been doing the right collection of things to normalize the system, to get the stability muscles firing better, to find the right positions, to open up the tissue that's adaptively a little short. All that's going to take care of itself as you start reducing fear and normalizing healthy movement.
Okay.
It sounds easy, right? I'm making it sound
yeah.
easy. But yeah. Cool. Well, hit me up with questions in Instagram Messenger, or if you want to text me or email me. That's cool. Just stay in
Yes.
touch about how it's going this month, and if you want to recheck in a month, we can do that. But I think you're gonna,
Thank you.
I think you're gonna do really well.
Yeah, thanks, Charlie. Yeah, I really appreciate it, and
Hey, man.
I'll keep you posted with that. I've seen you have a lot of clinics of running technique and running drills and running injury free, and that's I have a lot of people in the running industry, and a lot of people that follow me are runners and OCR athletes that could benefit from that. So I'll of course
Cool. Thank you.
promote that for
I appreciate
as a
that. I'm going to make one for climbers next. It's going to have a lot of the stuff you and I talked about in it for rock climbers. And I always include some pain science in there. You know, this sort of more these newer ideas about pain not being connected to tissue damage. That's always a big part of my courses. So
yeah.
I go with that. I can share this recording with you if you want to share bits of it, or you want to share the whole thing with your community. That's fine with me.
Yeah, that'll be great.
And if you're comfortable with me sharing it, I would probably, I mean, this is a great example of a video that would probably help a lot of people. So
Of
if you're
course.
comfortable with me sharing it, even on my YouTube channel, I'd just put it out there for free for people to learn. So, but it's
Yeah,
up to
yeah, of course.
your session. So you tell me.
No, feel free to do that, and I'm going to share it as well, of course.
Okay, cool. Yeah, man. I'll share the link with you, and then you can do with it what you want.
Perfect.
Appreciate the exposure.
Great, Charlie. No need to thank. Appreciate your time.
Yeah, man. All right, Fernando. We'll stay in touch, and I'll look forward to seeing you soon.
Yeah, of course. Thank you very much, Charlie. Have a great day up there.
Yourself and your family.
Thank you.
Yeah. So, hey, thanks for tuning in, and I hope you enjoy this virtual consult. Thanks for tolerating my daughter in the background doing, I don't know, whatever she's doing, hopefully preventing a labral tear in the future. And hey, muchas gracias, Fernando Casanova Lobo. Isn't that an amazing name? Incredible. Thanks for allowing me to share this video with everybody. Take a second to subscribe, sign up for notifications so you don't miss a video, and I look forward to seeing you all next time. Peace.